What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about why the clock is ticking on the Cincinnati Bengals as it relates to their ongoing dispute with Hamilton County in regards to their stadium lease situation with Paycor Stadium. So we're going to be talking about that to start off today's show. Also, some family treatment issues continue for Cincinnati. If you guys remember, back in February, the NFLPA put out their report cards, and the Bengals got an F- as it related to how they treated players' families. So obviously that is not a good situation. There's been some more developments in regards to that as well. And we'll close out today's show with a little Trey Hendrickson conversation. He is actually back in Cincinnati training in Blue Ash, but I don't think necessarily a contract extension is imminent at this point. So make sure you stick around throughout the entirety of today's show. And of note, doing a little solo producing here on today's show. So if you see me look down, whatever the case may be, just trying to do multiple things here at once as we progress throughout today's show. Before we get into that, though, make sure you guys share today's video for me on social media if you haven't done so already. Any platform in which you desire, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. It works for us. Just trying to get the word out there to more Bengals fans that aren't necessarily tapped into what we're doing here at Bengals Breakdown. So help us out. Share today's video for me right now. So as I mentioned, the Cincinnati Bengals are running out of time. The Bengals and Hamilton County have until June 30th to agree on a new stadium lease. Obviously, that is a week away. And things looked like they were heading in a promising direction when the county reached a memorandum of understanding with the Bengals back in April. We kind of thought this whole thing was going to be moved beyond us. But since that day, really nothing positive has transpired between the Cincinnati Bengals and Hamilton County. And now we're sitting here a week away from a deadline, and things haven't really gotten done. And it's kind of getting to that nitty-gritty time where it's like, okay, things need to happen or this could really become an issue for Cincinnati. So the current lease has 5 two-year options, which we'll get to that in a second. But the lease does expire June 30th of 2026. But they needed to agree to a new lease or exercise their options by the June 30th of 2025. Now, the current lease, as I said, has 5 two-year options that the Bengals could perhaps exercise if they wanted to, but they still have to make up a decision as it relates to that before June 30th. And obviously the Bengals aren't trying to do that because they are trying to negotiate a new lease. That is kind of what has gotten us into this situation. This lease would include renovations to Paycor Stadium. And we've obviously seen all the different renderings and ideas of projects that could go down as far as helping Paycor Stadium be a better stadium. And that obviously is something that Cincinnati wants to do. Now, the Bengals want a shorter lease. The county wants the Bengals to contribute more to the stadium's operating and maintenance costs. And the Bengals want a percentage of that tax revenue from people here in the city of Cincinnati. So they're trying to get some help as it relates to paying for the stadium, and Hamilton is saying, you know what, you guys need to be taking care of that and not necessarily it coming out of tax dollars for people here in Cincinnati. But really the reason why this is kind of a situation is because leaving downtown is now really a possibility when you look at how this is transpiring for the Cincinnati Bengals. If nothing gets done here within this week, I think you could really explore the fact that, hey, they might not be playing off the banks of the Ohio River anymore. And obviously for me, I think that is a significant issue. I think that Bengals football belongs in downtown Cincinnati. But, you know, if nothing gets done here with this lease, they might have to start looking into the suburbs about a new place to play if they're not able to get something sorted out with Hamilton County. Leads to the pinned comment of today's show. Would you be all right with the Bengals leaving downtown? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Type Y for yes or N for no. To me, football just belongs in downtown Cincinnati. It would feel a little bit weird if it wasn't downtown and if it was somewhere else within the greater Cincinnati area. Do want to make note they wouldn't be going far, right? They would still be in Cincinnati. It just wouldn't be downtown. But I'm still holding on to hope that something's going to get worked out or the Bengals are going to opt to exercise one of their options here and look to negotiate down the road. But no Bengals football in downtown Cincinnati does not sit well with me whatsoever. All right, so some more issues as it relates to the way that the Cincinnati Bengals treat family members of the players, basically how they take care of them on game days. Ben Baby spoke to anonymous Bengals players on the lack of family amenities. And this isn't something that is a new issue for Cincinnati, as we'll get into. They've been knocked for this for quite some time as it relates to the NFLPA report cards, and now more stuff is ultimately coming up. Here's what an anonymous player said to Ben Baby as it relates to the Cincinnati Bengals, saying just different things where they can make it more convenient for our families, especially when the husband's not there. We're worried about them. I think it would be easier for us if we had certain things for our families. We don't have to worry about it. And look, this is just another thing that Cincinnati could do a much better job of that they don't. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the Bengals had an F- grade for treatment of families back in February. All right, that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason to be in a situation where you're getting an F-. That means you literally can't get any worse. That shows you how bad, according to the NFLPA, the Bengals were doing when it came to the treatment of players on families of players on the football team. That's embarrassing, one, right? You're a professional organization, right? Do better. It's really that simple. And it also hurts the reputation of the Cincinnati Bengals that seemingly is always kind of getting dinged up, right? The Bengals have that reputation. Oh, they're cheap. They don't like to spend money. You don't want this to be tagged onto that as well and say, yeah, they just don't even take care of their players' families. All right, you're paying the guys on the football team. You got to take care of their families too. Do you have to roll out the red carpet for them? No, right? Some teams probably take it a little bit too over the top, but you can't get an F- and be ranked last when it comes to the treatment of players' families. That's just absolutely ridiculous. They were ranked 24th in report card grading. That's not great, right? That relates to a bunch of different stuff. Facilities, kind of the list goes on there. 24, obviously, that's better than being in the 30s, but I think middle of the pack to upper middle of the pack is what you should be striving for, but no reason to have an F- in the category of treatment of players' families. It's just pretty straightforward to me, and it seems like something that should be cleaned up pretty fast. There was, reports that there was this tent for families on game days, and they would be outside. Now they've done away with the tent, apparently. Now they're back inside. But just something that needs to get cleaned up, and no reason to be in the news for something like this. Has to be cleaned up, and frankly, it's just a little bit embarrassing that you even had to deal with this in the first place. We'll continue with our show here in a second, but do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Fanatics. Let you guys know that these Bengals USA shirts are on sale. You can go get them, chatsports.com/Bengals July 4th/ and obviously July 4th is right around the corner, and these are on sale, and they're pretty cool. Obviously, you can show your Cincinnati Bengals swag and also show your USA swag as well, courtesy of our friends over at Fanatics. That's chatsports.com/Bengals July 4th/ We'll put that link in the comments section and the description of today's show. Don't miss out on that. Head on over to Fanatics and check some of that stuff out. Do want to spend a little time talking about Trey Hendrickson. Adam Schefter says the Bengals are looking for a shorter deal, and Hendrickson wants a longer deal. And look, it really doesn't seem like the two sides are very close whatsoever when it comes to his future with the Cincinnati Bengals, right? They're clearly apart on the money, and then they're clearly apart now on the length in which that he should be playing for Cincinnati. The Bengals, I've heard it as low as just a one-year deal for Cincinnati, and Hendrickson obviously is looking for a lot more than that and hoping that he can kind of finish out his career here in Cincinnati, at least the prime stages of his career. But then again, you could argue that he's already kind of moving past his prime. But of course, he did have 17 and a half sacks the past two seasons. More on this in a second. But how long do you think Trey Hendrickson's deal should be? Let me know. How many years do you think this Hendrickson deal should be? If you're Duke Tobin, if you're Katie Blackburn, if you're the Bengals front office, how long are you negotiating it for? Is this something that you want to be a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case may be? Sound off for us in the comments section of today's show. It doesn't seem like we're close at all here, right? There's been some reports that we've talked about. Albert Breer kind of thought the Bengals were closing in perhaps on a deal with Trey Hendrickson. You've heard Orlando Brown Jr. say it feels like only a matter of time before it gets sorted out. But, I mean, if you're far apart on the length of the contract and the compensation as far as how much it is each and every year, I mean, seemingly you're not really close whatsoever. Now, as I mentioned at the top, Trey Hendrickson is back here in Cincinnati. He's training at Black Sheep in Blue Ash. Several Bengals players have done this. Burrow trains there. Sam Hubbard used to train there. And Hendrickson, despite these contract situations, is showing up to train. So I guess that's positive, and that kind of shows me that maybe he's not fully serious about this holdout stuff. But at the end of the day, obviously his words would go against that. Seems like he is pretty serious about not playing under his current contract. Obviously, as we've talked about, this is what he's looking for. He's looking to be somewhere high on this list. And based on the production on the football field, he deserves to be really high on this list. Cincinnati has their reservations because of his age, 30 years of age. They don't want to give him that long deal. They're looking for something that's probably only a year or two. I'm sure he's looking for at least 3 years, maybe even 4 years as well. It's an ongoing thing. I've gone back and forth as far as whether or not I think it's going to get done. Early in the offseason, I was like, yes, of course. As time goes on, it feels less and less likely. Duke Tobin has spoke about wanting Trey Hendrickson to be back. Obviously, Joe Burrow has as well. We will see ultimately if it gets done. So promising that he's back here in Cincinnati to train, but it does seem like the two sides remain very, very far apart.